Chapter 1. The Power of Silence. Silence is often perceived as something empty, a void filled only with an absence of sound. It is something we avoid, fear, and sometimes misinterpret. Yet, beneath this stillness lies a rich language, one that speaks louder than words. It's a language that reveals truths about our behavior, our thoughts, and even our deepest fears. The simple act of being silent holds a mirror to our souls, offering a glimpse into the parts of ourselves we might otherwise neglect. But to truly understand the power of silence, we must first explore its nature, not as a void, but as a space filled with meaning. Every time we sit in silence, whether it's during a moment of introspection or when we find ourselves in the presence of another, we are communicating. The absence of noise doesn't mean the absence of messages. No, our bodies are constantly speaking, our minds constantly processing. In those quiet moments, our behavior is laid bare. We might shift uncomfortably in our seats, glance away, or perhaps allow ourselves a brief sigh. These are signals, often more telling than any spoken word. Think of a time when you found yourself in an awkward silence, maybe a conversation that had suddenly paused, or a tense moment between two people where no words were spoken. In those moments, did you feel uneasy, or were you simply waiting for the other person to fill the void? The truth is, silence doesn't make us uncomfortable because there's nothing there. Rather, it challenges us to confront our own thoughts, to deal with the discomfort of not knowing what the other person is thinking. Silence forces us to look inward, often revealing things we may not be ready to face. This moment of stillness can be a powerful reflection of how we engage with the world around us. For some, silence is a weapon, used to create distance or emphasize power. For others, it is a refuge, a place to escape the noise of daily life. But no matter the context, silence always reveals something about who we are. It can uncover insecurities, desires, and even our sense of self-worth. It speaks to our comfort with vulnerability, our willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, and our need for connection. Human behavior in silence can be incredibly revealing, especially in social situations. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone refuses to speak, only to watch how the silence influences the dynamics? In that moment, their silence communicates power, discomfort, or perhaps a silent rebellion against the norms of communication. The unspoken words, the ones we don't say often, hold more weight than the ones we speak aloud. It's easy to overlook the impact silence has on our lives because we are so accustomed to filling our spaces with sound. We are surrounded by constant noise, from conversations to the hum of electronics, the rush of traffic, the blaring of music. But if you pause for a moment and truly listen, you might begin to notice the subtle ways in which silence speaks. It may not shout, but it whispers. Think about the last time you experienced silence in a meaningful way. Maybe you were in nature, standing alone by a lake, or sitting in a room where the only sound was your own breathing. What did you notice? What did your mind drift to? These moments are often the ones when we feel most connected to our true selves. In silence, there are no distractions, no external pressures. It is just us, and in that stillness, we find clarity. This connection between silence and self-awareness is not just philosophical. Psychologically, silence has a profound impact on our minds. It creates a space where we can hear our inner voice, where we can listen to our intuition and our gut feelings. It's in those moments of quiet that we often experience our greatest insights, realizations about our goals, our relationships, and the path we should take. But silence is not always a peaceful, calming force. For many, it can be a source of anxiety and fear. The idea of sitting with one's own thoughts without the distraction of noise can be unsettling. Silence brings with it the opportunity to confront our emotions, our regrets, and our deepest vulnerabilities. In this space, we are forced to examine what is truly important to us and whether we are living authentically. It can be a mirror, one that reflects not only our strengths, but also our fears and insecurities. As we begin to understand the role silence plays in our lives, it becomes clear that it is not a passive state. Silence is active, dynamic, and full of potential. It invites us to pause, reflect, and listen to the messages that are often drowned out by the noise of the world. The next time you find yourself in a moment of silence, take a deep breath and allow it to reveal something new about your behavior. What does your body say when no words are spoken? What does your mind race to when you're left alone with your thoughts? In that quiet space, you will begin to uncover the hidden truths about yourself and others. Now, think about the power of silence in the context of relationships. The moments of silence between two people are often more telling than their words. Have you ever been in a relationship where the silence felt heavy? Perhaps there were unspoken frustrations, or a quiet understanding that no words could capture. Silence in relationships can serve as a form of communication, a way of signaling disagreement, disconnection, or, on the contrary, deep understanding. Consider a couple who has been together for years. Over time, they may no longer need to speak to communicate their feelings. A single glance, a pause, a sigh. These actions convey more than words ever could. Silence, in this case, becomes a language of its own, an intimate conversation that speaks directly to the heart. In moments of conflict, silence can hold power, either to create space for reflection or to deepen the tension. In times of peace, it can become a bond, a shared experience that transcends the need for verbal communication. As we navigate the world around us, it's essential to recognize the complexity of silence in our behavior. It's not merely the absence of sound, but a powerful, multifaceted tool that shapes our interactions and self-awareness. In the chapters that follow, we will explore how silence functions in various aspects of human behavior, from its role in conflict to its impact on emotional regulation and decision-making. Let's dive deeper into how silence functions within conflict and how it can influence the way we resolve disagreements. We will examine how silence can be used both as a defense mechanism and as a tool for self-restraint. As we continue this journey through the quiet corners of human behavior, we will begin to see how silence is not simply something we experience, but something we use sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously, to shape our interactions with the world around us. When silence enters a conflict, it doesn't just disappear into the background. It takes center stage, often altering the course of the conversation and shaping the outcome in ways that words alone cannot. Understanding how silence functions in these high-stakes moments is crucial to understanding human behavior and, more importantly, our ability to resolve conflict with grace and understanding. Imagine a situation where two people are in the midst of a heated argument. The tension in the room is palpable. Words are exchanged with rising intensity, each person striving to assert their point of view. Suddenly, one person falls silent. At first, it might seem like they've been defeated, but what is actually happening in this moment? Is this silence a sign of surrender, or is it a calculated move designed to de-escalate the situation? The answer, of course, depends on the context and the individuals involved. But the silence itself carries weight. It's not neutral. It's an active force in the conversation. Silence in conflict can serve a variety of functions. On one hand, it can be a defensive mechanism, a way of protecting oneself from further emotional injury. When we feel attacked or misunderstood, silence can become a shield. It's a way of avoiding further harm, a temporary retreat into a space where we can collect our thoughts and regain our composure. It's as though the mind needs a moment of reprieve to step back from the emotional intensity of the conflict in order to regain clarity. However, silence can also be used strategically to communicate power. In some situations, withholding words or refusing to respond becomes a form of control. It's a way of asserting dominance over the conversation. In this dynamic, silence becomes the weapon of choice, creating an imbalance that forces the other person to either break the silence or accept the unspoken message. This can be especially true in power dynamics, where one party feels entitled to silence the other as a way of demonstrating authority or superiority. The absence of words in this case carries a far more powerful message than anything that could be said aloud. Think about the times when you've been in an argument and silence has settled over the situation. Was it uncomfortable? Did it feel like the conversation was incomplete? Or did it allow for the kind of reflection that helped you see the issue more clearly? Sometimes, it's only after the words have stopped that the true message can be heard. Silence creates space for introspection, giving both parties the chance to process their emotions and rethink their positions. But silence doesn't just exist in moments of tension or anger. It also plays a critical role in resolving conflict. So when two people are engaged in a disagreement, often it's the person who can remain silent, the one who can pause, breathe, and collect their thoughts, who holds the key to resolution. This isn't to say that silence alone can fix everything, but rather that it allows for a more thoughtful, intentional response. The power of silence in conflict resolution lies in its ability to create room for empathy. When one person chooses silence, it can serve as an invitation for the other to step into their shoes, to reflect on their words, and to reconsider the impact of their actions. Silence gives both parties the opportunity to listen, truly listen, not just to respond, but to understand. This is where real resolution begins. It's in the moments of silence, after the noise has died down, that the heart of the conflict can be truly addressed. Take a moment to reflect on a conflict you've had in your own life. How often did silence play a role? Perhaps it was a moment of silence after a particularly sharp comment, or a quiet pause before a crucial decision was made. In those moments, silence didn't just create an absence of sound, it facilitated reflection, understanding, and eventually resolution. In those brief pauses, the mind had the opportunity to process the emotions and to find a way forward. Of course, silence can also be a sign of avoidance. Some people use silence not as a tool for reflection or resolution, but as a way to avoid difficult conversations altogether. In these cases, silence becomes a barrier, one that prevents resolution from ever occurring. When one party refuses to speak, they effectively block any opportunity for understanding or healing. And this kind of silence is harmful because it stagnates the relationship and prevents growth. Silence, when used as a defense mechanism to avoid conflict, leads to unresolved issues and unspoken resentment. The silence, in this case, does not heal, it festers. But silence in these situations can also be telling. It can reveal the fear of confrontation, the lack of communication skills, or even the emotional distance between the individuals involved. When someone chooses silence as an escape from conflict, it's often an indication that they are not ready to face the discomfort that resolution may bring. Silence becomes a sign of emotional immaturity, or perhaps a deeper emotional wound that has yet to be addressed. As we look at how silence functions in conflict, we begin to see that it is neither inherently good nor bad. It is a tool that can be wielded in a variety of ways, depending on the intention behind it. The key is in recognizing when silence is a necessary pause for reflection and when it is a tool for avoidance or control. In relationships, the ability to differentiate between these two types of silence can make all the difference. Learning to embrace the silence that facilitates growth and healing, while addressing the silence that stagnates progress, is a crucial skill in developing healthier, more balanced relationships. In the next chapter, we will explore how silence affects our emotional regulation and decision making. How does silence influence our ability to make clear, rational decisions? How does it affect our emotional state and our response to stress? We will dive deep into these questions, uncovering the intricate relationship between silence, emotional control, and decision making. Chapter 2: Silence and Emotional Regulation. Emotions are powerful forces that can drive us to act impulsively, sometimes in ways that we later regret. They are the internal compass that guides our decisions, and yet they are often a source of confusion. We feel things deeply, but sometimes the intensity of those feelings can cloud our judgment and prevent us from seeing the situation clearly. This is where silence becomes an invaluable tool. When we pause, when we allow ourselves the space to sit in silence, we create an opportunity to step back from the emotional surge and to find clarity. Think about the last time you were overwhelmed with emotion. Maybe you were angry, hurt, or frustrated. In that moment, your heart raced, and your thoughts were scattered. and your actions may have felt like they were beyond your control. But then, if you were able to step back, to sit in silence, what happened? In that stillness, your mind began to calm. You could breathe more deeply, think more clearly, and the emotional fog started to lift. Silence allows us to create that moment of pause where we can examine our emotions without being swept away by them. When we sit in silence, we are not trying to suppress or ignore our feelings. Rather, we are creating the space to process them. Emotional regulation is not about denying emotions. It's about learning to understand and manage them. And silence provides the perfect backdrop for this process. It allows us to reflect on why we are feeling the way we are. It gives us the time to ask ourselves, what triggered this emotion? Is it a response to something external, or is it coming from within me? This act of self-reflection is not always easy. In fact, it can be uncomfortable. Many of us are conditioned to avoid silence because it forces us to confront the raw, unfiltered aspects of ourselves. In a world filled with distractions, it's easy to push emotions aside, to bury them under the noise of daily life. But silence doesn't let us escape. It invites us to face our emotions head on, to explore their origins and understand their impact. One of the most powerful ways silence helps in emotional regulation is through mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in the moment, without judgment. It's about observing our thoughts and feelings without becoming overwhelmed by them. Silence is the gateway to mindfulness, offering us the opportunity to detach from our emotions and simply observe them. In these moments, we can ask ourselves important questions. What am I feeling right now? Is this emotion based on a truth, or is it a temporary reaction to a situation? In the presence of silence, we have the freedom to process our feelings with clarity. The mind slows down, and instead of reacting instinctively, we begin to respond consciously. We recognize the difference between what we are feeling and how we should act. This pause allows us to make decisions that are aligned with our values, not our impulses. Take a moment to reflect on how silence has helped you manage your emotions in the past. Have there been instances when stepping away from a heated situation, taking a breath, and simply being quiet allowed you to return with a clearer mind and a more measured response? This is the power of silence. It doesn't remove the emotion, but it helps to create a space where that emotion can be understood and directed in a constructive way. In times of stress or anxiety, silence can also be a refuge. When the world around us feels overwhelming, when our minds are racing with worries, silence gives us a safe haven where we can reconnect with ourselves. It's in these quiet moments that we are reminded of our resilience. We are reminded that, though emotions can be intense, they do not have to control us. We have the power to sit with our feelings, to allow them to pass, and to move forward with calm and clarity. For many people, silence is uncomfortable because it exposes the vulnerability we often try to hide. In our busy lives, we fill the silence with noise, distractions, conversations, activities, because it shields us from the things we are avoiding. But true emotional regulation begins when we are willing to sit with the discomfort of silence. It's in these moments of stillness that we allow ourselves to process, to heal, and to grow. Now, think about a time when silence did the opposite, when it created distance between you and others. Sometimes silence can be used as a defense mechanism, not to gain clarity, but to protect ourselves from painful emotions. In relationships, silence can be a sign of withdrawal, a way of creating emotional distance. Have you ever found yourself giving someone the silent treatment or retreating into silence during an argument? This form of silence is not about reflection or emotional control. It's about avoidance. It's a way of shutting down, of closing off communication in an effort to shield oneself from further emotional pain. While this form of silence may offer temporary relief, it does not contribute to long-term emotional regulation. In fact, it often exacerbates the problem. Silence used as avoidance prevents us from addressing the root cause of our emotions and hinders the growth that comes from healthy communication. It leaves issues unresolved and can lead to resentment and misunderstanding. This kind of silence can erode trust and intimacy in relationships, making it harder to connect and communicate authentically. The key difference here is intention. Silence used for emotional clarity and mindfulness helps us process our emotions and make thoughtful decisions. While silence used as avoidance only delays the inevitable and unresolved emotional issue that will continue to impact us until it is addressed. It's important to recognize when silence is serving you and when it is working against you. Let's explore how silence plays a role in decision making. How does silence influence our ability to make clear, rational choices? What happens when we are given the time and space to think, to weigh our options, without the pressure of external noise? Understanding this connection between silence and decision making will deepen our understanding of how to use silence to our advantage, not just in emotional regulation, but in every aspect of our lives. Chapter 2: Silence and Emotional Regulation. Part 2: Silence and Decision Making. The decisions we make shape the course of our lives. Whether it's a minor choice about what to eat or a major decision about relationships, careers, or finances, the ability to make sound decisions is a vital skill. But what happens when we rush these decisions, when the noise of the world and the pressure of immediate consequences drown out the space we need to think clearly? Often, our judgment becomes clouded, and the quality of our decisions suffers. This is where silence becomes a powerful ally, offering the space necessary to make thoughtful, informed choices. The impact of silence on decision-making is profound. In a world where we are constantly bombarded by information news, opinions, social media, advertisements, our minds are in a constant state of processing. Decisions are no longer made in quiet, intentional moments, but are often rushed and influenced by external noise. And this creates a disconnect between the decision maker and their true needs, desires, and values. In the absence of silence, decisions are often reactive, driven by impulses rather than deliberate thought. Consider a time when you were faced with a major decision. Perhaps it was a job offer, a relationship dilemma, or a financial choice. If you made the decision quickly, without taking time to sit with your thoughts in silence, how did that turn out? Did you feel confident in your choice? Or did you later regret not taking more time to reflect? Silence in these moments provides the pause necessary to evaluate your options and align them with your deeper values. In contrast, when we are granted the gift of silence, when we allow ourselves the luxury of time and stillness, the quality of our decisions improves. Silence creates a space where we can hear our inner voice, our intuition, guiding us toward the choices that align with who we truly are. It provides a moment to sift through the noise, to discern what is truly important, and to remove the influence of fear, anxiety, and external pressures. But why is this space so important? The answer lies in the way our brains function. When we are caught up in the rush of emotions or external stimuli, our brains are in a state of heightened alertness, often focused on immediate gratification or short-term outcomes. This is the survival mode we have evolved with, designed to help us respond quickly to threats. However, this same mechanism can cloud our ability to think strategically and make long-term decisions that serve our best interests. Silence, on the other hand, allows us to engage the part of our brain responsible for deeper, more reflective thinking. It calms the mind, lowers stress, and shifts our focus away from immediate rewards. In silence, we can engage the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain involved in decision-making, problem-solving, and planning. This shift in brain activity allows us to approach decisions with more clarity, to consider long-term consequences, and to evaluate our choices from a more thoughtful perspective. Have you ever found yourself in a quiet room, perhaps with nothing but your own thoughts and the sound of your breath, and suddenly a solution to a problem you've been facing comes to mind? This is the power of silence at work. It is in these moments of quiet reflection that our minds can process the information we have gathered, connect the dots, and come to conclusions that we might have missed in the chaos of daily life. Think of silence as a filter for decision-making. In the absence of distraction, we are able to focus on what truly matters. When we are not constantly reacting to external stimuli, we can assess our options more objectively, free from the influence of panic, fear, or the pressure to make a quick decision. This gives us the freedom to make choices that are more in alignment with our long-term goals, values, and well-being. There's a profound difference between a decision made in the midst of noise and a decision made in the stillness of silence. The former may be hasty, impulsive, and driven by external factors. The latter is thoughtful, deliberate, and rooted in inner clarity. As you reflect on the decisions you've made in your life, and you ask yourself, were these decisions made in haste, or did I give myself the time to think them through? If you can identify moments when your decisions felt rushed or influenced by external pressures, you'll begin to see the true power of silence in giving you the space to make wiser, more informed choices. Now, let's take a deeper look at how silence influences our ability to make decisions in specific situations, such as in high-pressure environments. For example, in the workplace, when faced with tight deadlines and demanding colleagues, it can feel impossible to make clear-headed decisions. The noise of expectations, deadlines, and stress can overwhelm us, causing us to act on impulse or make decisions that are not in our best interest. In these situations, the ability to step back and create a moment of silence can be transformative. By taking just a few minutes to step away from the noise, whether it's through a quiet walk, a few deep breaths, or even just closing your eyes for a moment, you can reset your mind. In these few moments of silence, you can evaluate the situation, consider your options, and come up with a plan that is aligned with your long-term goals, rather than reacting impulsively to immediate pressures. This practice of stepping into silence during high-pressure situations is not just about calming your nerves, it's about creating the mental clarity necessary for making sound decisions. It's about recognizing that in moments of chaos, silence is the tool you need to cut through the noise and find the truth beneath it. The same principle applies when making decisions in relationships. Often, we feel pressure to react immediately to a partner's words or actions, especially in moments of tension or conflict. Yet, if we take the time to pause, to sit in silence, we give ourselves the space to respond thoughtfully, rather than reacting out of hurt or frustration. This silence creates a space for empathy, understanding, and resolution. It allows us to make decisions that honor both ourselves and the other person involved, rather than acting from a place of emotional turmoil. As you reflect on your own decision-making processes, consider how often you've allowed silence to guide you. When faced with important choices, whether in your personal life, career, or finances, how often have you taken the time to pause, reflect, and allow your mind to settle before making a decision? This practice, when applied consistently, will not only improve the quality of your decisions, but also your overall well-being, as it helps you align your choices with your deepest values. Chapter 3. Silence and Relationships. Human relationships are built on communication. We speak, we listen, we share, and we respond. Words are our primary tools for conveying thoughts, feelings, and intentions. Yet, despite the importance of language, there's a powerful force at play in every relationship that goes beyond spoken words, silence. Silence is not the absence of communication. Rather, it is a subtle, yet profound way of expressing connection, understanding, and emotion. It is in the spaces between words, the pauses, and the stillness that much of the true essence of our relationships is revealed. Think about a moment of deep connection with another person, a time when words were not necessary to convey the depth of your feelings. Perhaps it was with a close friend, a partner, or even a family member. You may have been sitting together in complete silence, yet the bond between you felt stronger than ever. There was no need for words to validate your presence or your connection. Silence in that moment spoke volumes. It communicated comfort, trust, and mutual understanding. In relationships, silence can serve as a powerful indicator of intimacy. When we are truly comfortable with someone, we don't always feel the need to fill every moment with conversation. Sometimes, simply sharing space in silence is enough. In these quiet moments, we communicate through body language, facial expressions, and energy. The absence of words is not a sign of distance or disconnection, but a sign that we are so in tune with one another that words are unnecessary. Silence in relationships, then, becomes a form of nonverbal communication that deepens our connection. But what happens when silence becomes uncomfortable? In some relationships, silence can carry a sense of tension, avoidance, or even hostility. The silence between two people can feel oppressive when it is filled with unspoken emotions or unresolved conflict. Have you ever been in a room with someone where the silence was deafening, where the air felt thick with things left unsaid? In these moments, silence is not a bridge to deeper understanding, but a wall that separates people. It is a silence marked by discomfort, uncertainty, or emotional distance. The key to understanding silence in relationships is to examine its intention. Silence that arises out of understanding, mutual respect, and comfort can strengthen a relationship, while silence born out of avoidance or emotional withdrawal can cause harm. For example, when two people are going through a difficult time, they may find themselves retreating into silence, each person too afraid to address the issue at hand. In these moments, silence becomes a barrier rather than a bond. It is a form of avoidance that keeps the relationship from evolving, from growing through the challenges it faces. On the other hand, silence in the form of active listening can foster greater emotional intimacy. In conversations, we often focus on speaking, on making our points heard. However, the true magic of communication lies in the ability to listen, to hold space for the other person's words, thoughts, and emotions, without rushing to fill the silence with our own. Active listening involves a quieting of the mind, a suspension of judgment, and an openness to hearing the other person's truth. It requires us to sit in silence while the other person shares their feelings, without interrupting, without offering solutions, just allowing them the space to express themselves. This kind of silence creates an environment of emotional safety, where both people feel heard, valued, and understood. In relationships, especially romantic ones, the ability to hold space for silence during emotional conversations is a powerful tool. It allows both individuals to process their emotions, to reflect, and to come to mutual understanding. It is in these moments of silence that we show respect for the other person's experience, acknowledging that their emotions are valid, even if we don't always have the words to respond. In contrast, silence that is marked by defensiveness or rejection can be damaging. Imagine a scenario where one person in a relationship is expressing their feelings, but the other person remains silent, perhaps out of anger or a desire to avoid conflict. This silence can feel like a form of punishment, a way of withdrawing love and support. It sends the message that the other person's feelings don't matter, that they are not worth responding to. Over time, this kind of silence erodes trust and intimacy, as it creates emotional distance between the two individuals. In these situations, silence can become a weapon, a way of shutting down communication and avoiding vulnerability. It is easy to fall into the trap of using silence as a way to protect oneself from further hurt or rejection, but this only perpetuates the cycle of emotional disconnection. Instead of allowing the silence to create more space for understanding, it creates a void that neither person knows how to bridge. In healthy relationships, silence is used as a tool for reflection and connection, not avoidance. It becomes a space for each person to process their emotions and come together with a deeper understanding of each other's needs. It is in this silence that true healing can occur, when we allow ourselves to pause, to listen, and to be present with the other person, without the need for words. Now, one of the most powerful aspects of silence in relationships is its ability to create a sense of shared experience. Think of a couple sitting together, watching a sunset. They may not speak a word, but the silence is filled with the shared appreciation of the moment. There is no need to verbalize the beauty of the scene because it is understood between them. This is the kind of silence that connects people on a deeper level, where the absence of words enhances the experience rather than detracting from it. In relationships, we often seek validation through words. We want to hear, "I love you," "I care about you," "I'm here for you." While these words are important, silence can often speak more directly to the heart. It is in the quiet moments, those moments when we sit together, side by side, without the need for conversation, that we can truly feel seen, heard, and loved. As we move forward, it's important to reflect on the role that silence plays in your own relationships. Do you use silence as a tool for connection? Or do you find that it often leads to distance and misunderstanding? Are there moments when silence has deepened your connection with others, allowing you to communicate more profoundly than words could? Or are there instances where silence has served as a barrier, preventing meaningful dialogue and emotional closeness? Chapter 4: Silence and Personal Growth. In a world that is constantly noisy, full of opinions, expectations, and the endless hum of external influences, it's easy to forget the power of silence in our personal development. We are constantly seeking answers from the outside world, looking for validation, guidance, and reassurance from others. But what if the answers we are searching for are not out there at all, but within us? The key to unlocking this inner wisdom lies in the ability to embrace silence. Personal growth is a lifelong journey, one that requires introspection, self awareness, and the courage to confront the truths we may not want to face. Silence, when used intentionally, becomes a powerful tool in this process. It allows us the space to listen to our inner voice, to connect with our deepest thoughts, and to understand the parts of ourselves that we often overlook in the noise of daily life. Think about a time when you were faced with a decision that required deep reflection. Perhaps it was a crossroads in your life changing careers, ending a relationship, or embarking on a new adventure. In that moment of uncertainty, you may have sought advice from others, hoping they could provide clarity. Yet, despite the well meaning counsel, you felt that the final decision could only be made by you. This is the moment when silence becomes invaluable. When we step back from the noise and allow ourselves the stillness to reflect, we can access the answers that reside within us. It is in these moments of silence that we are able to detach from the opinions and expectations of others. We become free from the pressure to conform, to meet external standards, and to please others. Silence gives us permission to listen to our own needs and desires, to honor our intuition, and to trust ourselves. It is in this space of quiet that we can truly discover who we are, separate from the roles we play or the masks we wear. The personal growth is not about becoming someone else. It's about unbecoming the layers of conditioning, fear, and doubt that have accumulated over time. Silence allows us to shed these layers, to strip away the distractions, and to reconnect with the person we were always meant to be. It is in the stillness that we find clarity about our passions, our purpose, and our values. Have you ever had a moment of self-realization where the clarity of your true self seemed to emerge from the quiet? Maybe it was during a solitary walk in nature, or while sitting alone with your thoughts. In that silence, you may have been able to see a truth about yourself that had been hidden beneath the surface. Perhaps you realized that you had been living for others, or that you were pursuing a path that no longer aligned with who you truly were. This moment of clarity is a direct result of silence, of the space it creates for self-reflection and self-discovery. This kind of introspection is not always comfortable. The silence can be deafening, as it forces us to confront the parts of ourselves that we may have been avoiding. It is in these moments that we often come face to face with our fears, insecurities, and limiting beliefs. But silence is not the enemy of growth. It is the gateway to transformation. When we allow ourselves to sit in the discomfort of silence, we create an opportunity to heal, to forgive, and to move forward with a deeper understanding of ourselves. Silence also gives us the time to reflect on our past experiences and to learn from them. When we are constantly moving, rushing from one task to the next, hey, it's easy to overlook the lessons embedded in our struggles and failures. But when we stop, when we pause in silence, we can begin to see the wisdom in our challenges. We can recognize the ways in which we have grown, even in the face of adversity. This process of reflection is essential for personal growth, as it allows us to integrate our experiences and use them as stepping stones for future success. In the silence, we find our inner strength. We realize that we are capable of more than we may have given ourselves credit for. It is in these quiet moments that we often discover a resilience we didn't know we had. Silence allows us to connect with our inner power, to recognize our potential, and to move forward with greater confidence and purpose. And personal growth also involves the courage to face the unknown, to embrace the uncertainty of the future without fear. Silence provides the space to confront this uncertainty and to trust that, even in the face of the unknown, we are capable of navigating whatever comes our way. It allows us to silence the voices of doubt and insecurity that hold us back from taking bold steps toward our goals. As you reflect on your own journey of personal growth, think about the role silence has played in that process. Have there been moments when you took the time to pause, to listen to your inner voice, and to make decisions that were in alignment with your true self? How has silence helped you confront your fears, heal from past wounds, and move forward with greater clarity? Let's explore the role of silence in setting and achieving personal goals. How does silence help us create a clear vision for the future? And how can we use it to stay focused and disciplined on the path toward our dreams? We will examine the ways in which silence enhances our ability to set intentional, purposeful goals, and how it supports our journey of self improvement. Chapter 4: Silence and Personal Growth. Part 2: Silence in Goal Setting and Achievement. Setting and achieving goals is one of the most powerful ways we measure progress in our lives. It provides us with direction, purpose, and a sense of accomplishment. But in a world filled with distractions, constant noise, and competing priorities, achieving these goals can seem like an overwhelming task. This is where silence, once again, plays a crucial role. When it comes to goal setting, many people are familiar with the concept of creating a plan or writing down their objectives. We are taught to visualize our dreams, set clear, actionable steps, and stay focused on the end result. But the process of goal setting is not just about external action. It is about creating a space in our minds where our goals can take shape, grow, and be nurtured. Silence is the fertile ground in which these seeds are planted. Think about the moment when you first conceived a major goal. Maybe it was to get healthier, change careers, or write a book. At that moment, there was a sense of clarity, a vision of what you wanted to achieve. But in the midst of daily life, that vision can often become clouded. The pressures of work, family, and social commitments can drown out the excitement and purpose you once felt. This is where silence becomes essential. Silence allows us to return to that moment of clarity. It provides the space to reconnect with our goals, to revisit the reasons why we set them in the first place. In silence, we can ask ourselves important questions. What is it that I truly want? Why is this goal important to me? What is driving me toward this vision? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones. In the quiet, we can listen to our inner voice, which holds the answers to these questions. Without silence, our goals are often influenced by external expectations, by what others think we should achieve, or by societal standards of success. But when we allow ourselves the time to sit quietly, we are better able to separate our true desires from external pressures. We gain clarity about what we truly want to create in our lives, and we become better equipped to pursue these goals with authenticity and purpose. One of the most powerful aspects of silence and goal setting is its ability to help us focus. The world is full of distractions, each one pulling our attention in different directions. We are bombarded with notifications, emails, and messages that demand our immediate attention. But silence, especially when practiced regularly, gives us the opportunity to cut through the noise and focus our energy on what truly matters. It provides us with a moment to pause, reflect, and recalibrate our efforts. In a world where multitasking is often seen as a sign of productivity, silence teaches us the value of single tasking. When we allow ourselves the time to focus deeply on one thing, now without the distractions of the outside world, we can make more meaningful progress toward our goals. Whether it's writing, studying, exercising, or working on a project, silence helps us immerse ourselves in the task at hand, leading to better results and greater satisfaction. Moreover, silence can help us overcome the common obstacles that prevent us from achieving our goals: fear, doubt, and procrastination. Often, we find ourselves avoiding our goals because we are afraid of failure or unsure of where to begin. The noise of our internal dialogue, the what-if questions, the self-doubt, the fear of not being good enough can be overwhelming. But silence creates a space where these thoughts can be acknowledged and set aside. In the quiet, again, we can confront our fears directly and realize that they are not as insurmountable as we once believed. Silence also allows us to practice patience. In the fast-paced world we live in, we are conditioned to expect instant gratification. We want results, and we want them now. But the journey of achieving meaningful goals is often a long one, filled with setbacks, challenges, and periods of uncertainty. Silence helps us cultivate patience, allowing us to trust the process and stay committed to the long-term vision, even when the results aren't immediately visible. Consider a time when you were working toward a goal, and things weren't progressing as quickly as you had hoped. How did you feel? Frustrated? Impatient? It's easy to lose sight of our goals when progress seems slow, but in moments of silence, we can remind ourselves that growth takes time. Silence gives us the opportunity to reflect on the progress we've made, to appreciate the small victories along the way, and to stay grounded in our commitment to the larger vision. This practice of using silence to support our goal-setting process is not just about achieving success. It's about finding fulfillment in the journey. When we take the time to sit in silence, we connect with the deeper purpose behind our goals. We remind ourselves why we started in the first place, and we find the motivation to keep moving forward, even when the path becomes difficult. Silence also provides the opportunity for course correction. We may start down one path, only to realize that it is not the right one for us. In these moments, silence gives us the space to reassess and change direction. Rather than rushing to make a decision, we pause, reflect, and allow ourselves the time to consider the best course of action. This ability to listen to our intuition and make adjustments along the way is one of the most important aspects of achieving long-term success. As you think about your own goals, ask yourself, do I allow myself the silence I need to reflect on my progress and reassess my direction? Do I take time to sit with my goals, to reconnect with the deeper purpose behind them, and to make sure that I am still on the path that aligns with who I truly am? In these moments of silence, you can find the strength to stay committed, the clarity to stay focused, and the patience to allow the process to unfold naturally. In the next chapter, we will explore how silence enhances our ability to maintain discipline and consistency. Achieving our goals requires not just moments of inspiration, but sustained effort and perseverance. Silence can help us build the mental and emotional fortitude to stay disciplined, even when faced with obstacles. We will delve into how silence supports long-term growth by strengthening our resolve and helping us stay true to our commitments. Chapter 5. Silence and Discipline. Discipline is often thought of as the ability to stay focused, to persevere through challenges, and to maintain consistent effort over time. It is a key factor in achieving any goal, whether personal, professional, or academic. But how do we cultivate discipline in a world filled with distractions, temptations, and external pressures? The answer lies in part in the power of silence. Silence is a powerful tool for building discipline because it creates the space necessary for deep focus. In silence, we remove the external noise that often pulls us in different directions, allowing us to zero in on the task at hand. It helps us resist the urge to check our phones, respond to notifications, or engage in other distractions that interrupt our flow. By practicing silence, we can train our minds to stay present, to stay on task, and to resist the temptations that derail our progress. But silence in the context of discipline is not just about external distractions. It is also about the internal noise that prevents us from staying committed to our goals. Our minds are often filled with doubts, fears, and excuses. I'm too tired, I'll start tomorrow, this is too hard. These thoughts create mental clutter, preventing us from taking consistent action. Silence provides the space to quiet this inner dialogue, to clear our minds, and to focus on what truly matters. It helps us quiet the voice of procrastination, the voice that tells us to put things off or to give in to our impulses. When we sit in silence, we allow ourselves to confront the distractions within. We become aware of the excuses and mental barriers that are holding us back. And in that stillness, we can choose to let them go. Discipline, in this sense, is not about forcing ourselves to do things we don't want to do. It's about cultivating the mental and emotional strength to stay committed to what is important, even when it's difficult. Silence strengthens this resolve by allowing us to connect with our true motivations, the reasons why we are pursuing our goals in the first place. In silence, we also gain a sense of accountability. When there are no external distractions, we are left with only ourselves and our commitments. This solitude forces us to take ownership of our actions and decisions. There is no one else to blame for our failures, and there is no one else to take credit for our successes. It is in the quiet moments that we realize the importance of consistency and the power of small, incremental efforts. Discipline is built in these moments of silence, where we show up for ourselves, even when no one is watching. Silence also teaches us patience. Building discipline takes time, and in a world that values instant gratification, it can be difficult to stay committed to long-term goals. Nay, but silence helps us slow down and recognize that true success is not achieved overnight. It is a gradual process, one that requires sustained effort over time. In silence, we learn to embrace the journey, to appreciate the small victories along the way, and to trust that our efforts will pay off in the long run. This patience is a cornerstone of discipline, and it is nurtured in the stillness of silence. As you reflect on your own experiences with discipline, think about the role that silence has played in your ability to stay focused and committed. Have there been moments when silence helped you regain your sense of purpose and motivation? Have you ever used silence to overcome procrastination and stay on track with your goals? By incorporating more silence into your daily routine, you can build the discipline necessary to achieve your dreams, one quiet, intentional step at a time. Chapter 5. Silence and Discipline. Discipline is often thought of as the ability to stay focused, to persevere through challenges, and to maintain consistent effort over time. It is a key factor in achieving any goal, whether personal, professional, or academic. But how do we cultivate discipline in a world filled with distractions, temptations, and external pressures? The answer lies, in part, in the power of silence. Silence is a powerful tool for building discipline because it creates the space necessary for deep focus. In silence, we remove the external noise that often pulls us in different directions, allowing us to zero in on the task at hand. It helps us resist the urge to check our phones, respond to notifications, or engage in other distractions that interrupt our flow. By practicing silence, we can train our minds to stay present, to stay on task, and to resist the temptations that derail our progress. But silence in the context of discipline is not just about external distractions. It is also about the internal noise that prevents us from staying committed to our goals. Our minds are often filled with doubts, fears, and excuses. I'm too tired. I'll start tomorrow. This is too hard. These thoughts create mental clutter, preventing us from taking consistent action. Silence provides the space to quiet this inner dialogue, to clear our minds, and to focus on what truly matters. It helps us quiet the voice of procrastination, the voice that tells us to put things off or to give in to our impulses. When we sit in silence, and we allow ourselves to confront the distractions within, we become aware of the excuses and mental barriers that are holding us back. And in that stillness, we can choose to let them go. Discipline, in this sense, is not about forcing ourselves to do things we don't want to do. It's about cultivating the mental and emotional strength to stay committed to what is important, even when it's difficult. Silence strengthens this resolve by allowing us to connect with our true motivations, the reasons why we are pursuing our goals in the first place. In silence, we also gain a sense of accountability. When there are no external distractions, we are left with only ourselves and our commitments. This solitude forces us to take ownership of our actions and decisions. There is no one else to blame for our failures, and there is no one else to take credit for our successes. It is in the quiet moments that we realize the importance of consistency and the power of small, incremental efforts. Discipline is built in these moments of silence, where we show up for ourselves, even when no one is watching. Silence also teaches us patience. Building discipline takes time, and in a world that values instant gratification, it can be difficult to stay committed to long-term goals. But silence helps us slow down and recognize that true success is not achieved overnight. It is a gradual process, one that requires sustained effort over time. In silence, we learn to embrace the journey, to appreciate the small victories along the way, and to trust that our efforts will pay off in the long run. This patience is a cornerstone of discipline, and it is nurtured in the stillness of silence. As you reflect on your own experiences with discipline, think about the role that silence has played in your ability to stay focused and committed. Have there been moments when silence helped you regain your sense of purpose and motivation? Have you ever used silence to overcome procrastination and stay on track with your goals? By incorporating more silence into your daily routine, you can build the discipline necessary to achieve your dreams, one quiet, intentional step at a time. Chapter 6: Silence and Long Term. Personal growth. Personal growth is a continuous journey. It is a process of transformation, of evolving into the best version of ourselves. But growth is not always linear. There are ups and downs, periods of stagnation, and moments of self-doubt. In these times, silence becomes a tool that helps us navigate the challenges of personal development and move forward with greater clarity and purpose. When we are growing, we are constantly learning about ourselves, the world around us, and the people we interact with. This process of learning requires reflection, self-awareness, and an openness to change. Silence provides the space for all of these things. It allows us to step back from the noise of our daily lives and examine where we are, where we've been, and where we want to go. In silence, we can reflect on our past experiences and how they have shaped us. We can look at our successes and our failures with a sense of objectivity, without the emotional charge that often accompanies them. This reflection is a vital part of personal growth because it helps us understand our patterns, our strengths, and our weaknesses. In the quiet moments, we gain the insight necessary to make better decisions and to move forward with a clearer sense of direction. Silence also helps us cultivate the resilience necessary for long-term growth. When we face setbacks or obstacles, it's easy to get discouraged and give up. But silence allows us to process our emotions, to grieve our losses, and to regroup. In these moments of stillness, we realize that failure is not the end, but an opportunity for learning and growth. Silence helps us reconnect with our inner strength, reminding us that we have the ability to overcome challenges and continue on our journey of personal development. Personal growth is not just about achieving external success. It's about evolving from within. It's about becoming more self-aware, more compassionate, and more aligned with our true purpose. Silence is a crucial companion on this journey. It provides the space for introspection, healing, and transformation. By embracing silence, we create the conditions for long-term personal growth, allowing us to evolve into the person we are meant to be. I understand, and I apologize for the brevity. Let me expand on Chapter 7 and make it more detailed, rich in reflection and emotionally engaging, aligning with the depth you're seeking. Chapter 7: Silence and the Art of Listening. The hidden power of attentive silence. We live in a world where words often take center stage. Conversations are the currency through which we interact with others, negotiate our desires, and navigate the complexities of our relationships. Yet in all of this verbal communication, there is a profound, the almost invisible force at work that is often overlooked: silence. It may seem like the absence of sound, but in reality, silence is the most powerful form of communication when it is harnessed properly. True listening, the kind that leads to understanding, connection, and intimacy, requires more than just hearing the words someone says. It demands that we put aside our own internal chatter, our judgments, and our assumptions. It asks us to be fully present, to listen not just to the words, but to the emotions, intentions, and underlying messages that those words carry. But in order to do this, we must first embrace the power of silence. Silence is not just the absence of sound, it is the space between words, the pause that allows us to digest, reflect, and respond with intention. It is the space that creates room for understanding. Think about a time when you found yourself in the presence of someone who really listened to you, not just with their ears, but with their heart. They didn't interrupt or jump to conclusions. They didn't rush to offer advice or opinions. They just allowed you to speak, and in that space, you felt heard, understood, and validated. That is the gift of silence and listening. It allows us to hold space for others to express themselves fully. This active silence, where we remain quiet, not because we have nothing to say, but because we want to make room for someone else's words, is an act of profound empathy. In this space, we are not only hearing the other person, but we are also creating an environment where they can feel safe to share their most authentic self. And it is a silent invitation to truly connect without the pressure of having to perform, explain, or justify. This kind of listening, grounded in silence, is not just about others. It is about us too. Silence, when used to listen to ourselves, opens the door to self-awareness. How often do we truly listen to our own thoughts and emotions? In the rush of daily life, we are constantly consumed by external noise work, relationships, social media, the never-ending demands of our to-do lists. But rarely do we take the time to stop, to reflect, and to listen to what's going on inside. The truth is, silence is the only way to access our deeper wisdom. It is in the quiet moments of stillness that we can hear the subtle whisper of our inner voice, the voice of intuition, of knowing, that guides us toward the path that is most aligned with our authentic self. In silence, we are able to hear our own desires, our own fears, and our own truths. It is in these moments that we can reflect on our past experiences, understand our emotional responses, and gain clarity about what we truly want from life. This kind of inner listening is not always comfortable. It can be challenging to face the thoughts, feelings, and insecurities that arise when we sit in silence with ourselves. But it is in these uncomfortable moments that true growth happens. Silence forces us to confront our own vulnerabilities, to acknowledge the areas where we may be avoiding the truth, and to make peace with ourselves. It is the practice of self-compassion, allowing ourselves the space to be imperfect, to be human, and to grow without judgment. Now, think of the role of silence in relationships. Whether in romantic partnerships, friendships, or family dynamics, silence can play a transformative role in how we communicate and connect with others. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation where the words were not necessary, where the silence between you and the other person spoke volumes? These are the moments when true intimacy is formed, not through the words we say, but through the quiet moments of understanding, where we are fully present with one another without the need for constant verbal exchange. In these moments, silence becomes a form of communication that transcends words. It's the shared glance, the gentle touch, or the quiet presence of another person that conveys more than 1,000 words could ever express. And this is the power of silence in building connection. It allows us to communicate on a deeper, more emotional level, bypassing the surface level chatter and moving into the realm of authentic connection. However, silence in relationships can also be problematic when it is used to avoid difficult emotions or unresolved issues. When we withdraw into silence during moments of tension or conflict, we prevent ourselves from working through the issue at hand. This kind of silence is not the kind that fosters connection. It is the kind that creates distance and emotional disconnection. Think about a time when you or someone you were in a relationship with used silence as a form of avoidance. Perhaps it was during an argument when one person shut down, refusing to engage or communicate. In these moments, your silence can feel like a weapon, a way to punish or manipulate the other person. It is the silence of emotional withdrawal, a defense mechanism that prevents resolution and deepens the rift between two people. But silence, when used with intention, can heal these wounds. It allows us to pause, to take a step back, and to process our emotions before we respond. It creates the space for reflection and clarity. Silence in these moments can prevent rash, hurtful words from being said, allowing us to approach the situation with calmness and empathy instead of anger and frustration. The key to using silence effectively in relationships is to be mindful of its intention. When we are silent to avoid confrontation, we create division. But when we use silence to reflect, to listen, and to create space for deeper understanding, it becomes a powerful tool for connection and resolution. This art of listening to others and to ourselves through silence is essential for building deeper relationships and achieving personal growth. It is not something that happens overnight, but through consistent practice. By giving ourselves the gift of silence and embracing the quiet spaces between words, we create the conditions for true listening, authentic connection, and profound understanding. In the next chapter, we will explore how silence can serve as a tool for emotional resilience in times of stress and uncertainty. Life is full of challenges, and in those moments, silence becomes the anchor that helps us stay grounded. We will look at how silence can help us build inner strength, regulate our emotions, and face adversity with calm and clarity. Chapter 8: Silence and Emotional Resilience. The anchor in life's storms. Emotional resilience is the ability to adapt, recover, and grow from adversity. It's the strength to navigate through life's challenges with a sense of balance, even in the face of stress, hardship, and uncertainty. We all encounter difficult moments, times of loss, failure, disappointment, or overwhelming pressure. And during these times, our emotional resilience is put to the test. But how do we build this resilience? How do we face the storms of life with grace and inner strength? One of the most powerful yet often overlooked tools in cultivating emotional resilience is silence. In moments of emotional turmoil, when everything around us feels chaotic and uncontrollable, silence can be the anchor that keeps us grounded. It creates a space where we can breathe, reflect, and regain our composure. In a world that often encourages quick fixes, distractions, and immediate solutions, silence teaches us the power of stillness, of allowing ourselves the time to process, to reflect, and to heal. Think about a time when you faced a difficult challenge. Perhaps it was a personal loss, a setback in your career, or a period of emotional pain. In those moments, did you find it difficult to sit with the discomfort? Did you try to push through the pain, distracting yourself with busyness or external stimuli? Or did you give yourself the space to sit in silence, to feel the emotions fully, and to allow the healing process to begin? Silence in these moments can be the most powerful form of emotional resilience. When we are faced with adversity, it is easy to want to escape, to numb the pain, or to look for external validation. But silence allows us to sit with our feelings, to confront them directly, and to find a sense of peace within ourselves. It creates the space for emotional regulation, helping us to process our emotions without being overwhelmed by them. This practice of embracing silence during difficult times is not about avoiding our feelings, it is about accepting them and allowing them to pass. Emotions are temporary, they come and go, often leaving us with a deeper sense of clarity and understanding. Silence allows us to weather the emotional storms without being swept away by them. It teaches us that we do not have to react impulsively to every emotion. Instead, we can choose to respond with mindfulness, with emotional balance, and with resilience. In moments of silence, we can reconnect with our inner strength. We often underestimate our capacity for resilience, believing that we are fragile or that we cannot handle the challenges life throws our way. But silence helps us recognize our own power. It reminds us that we have faced challenges before and emerged stronger, and we will do so again. In the quiet, we remember who we are and what we are capable of. It's in this stillness, that we find the strength to rise above adversity and move forward with renewed determination. Silence also helps us regulate our emotions during high-stress situations. Think about a time when you felt overwhelmed by pressure or anxiety. Perhaps you were facing a tight deadline, dealing with a personal crisis, or confronting a difficult decision. In these moments, the noise of our thoughts, the pressure of external demands, and the swirl of emotions can feel overwhelming. But silence allows us to pause, to take a step back, and to create space for calm. In those quiet moments, we can breathe deeply, clear our minds, and focus on what truly matters. We can regain perspective and move forward with a sense of clarity and purpose. Emotional resilience is not about avoiding pain or discomfort. It is about learning to navigate through it with a sense of grace and strength. Silence helps us do this by giving us the time and space we need to process our emotions, to reflect on our experiences, and to find the inner calm we need to move forward. It is a practice of self-compassion, of being gentle with ourselves in moments of struggle, and giving ourselves the permission to heal at our own pace. But silence, in the context of emotional resilience, is not about suppressing or ignoring our emotions. It is about acknowledging them, sitting with them, and allowing them to pass through us without being consumed by them. This is where silence becomes a tool for self-awareness and emotional intelligence. By embracing silence, we create a space where we can observe our thoughts and feelings without judgment, allowing us to respond rather than react. Have you ever noticed how, in the midst of chaos or distress, the simple act of sitting quietly can change your entire perspective? It's almost as if the silence clears away the fog of emotion, allowing you to see things more clearly. In this stillness, we can identify the root of our emotional turmoil, recognize the thoughts that are fueling our anxiety, and find the clarity we need to make decisions that align with our true desires. So, the beauty of silence and emotional resilience is that it doesn't require external circumstances to change. It doesn't require the world around us to become less stressful or for our problems to disappear. Instead, it allows us to find peace in the midst of the storm. Silence is not about escaping from our emotions. It's about creating the space to process them with mindfulness and acceptance. Consider how silence can help you build resilience in everyday life. When faced with small challenges, how often do you allow yourself a moment of silence to pause and regroup? Do you take the time to reflect, to clear your mind, and to recalibrate your emotional state? By incorporating more silence into your daily routine, you can strengthen your emotional resilience, enabling you to face larger challenges with greater ease and confidence. It is important to recognize that silence is a skill that can be cultivated. It's not something that comes naturally to everyone, especially in a world that is constantly filled with noise. But by intentionally carving out moments of silence throughout your day, whether it's through meditation, deep breathing, or simply sitting in stillness, you can train your mind to embrace the quiet and to use it as a tool for emotional regulation. As we conclude this exploration of silence and emotional resilience, take a moment to reflect on how silence has impacted your ability to navigate life's challenges. How has silence helped you stay grounded during difficult times? How has it supported your emotional growth and helped you build resilience in the face of adversity? Silence is not just the absence of sound, it is the presence of peace, clarity, and strength. It is the anchor that keeps us grounded amidst life's storms, helping us weather the chaos and emerge stronger on the other side.